Welcome back to Dharma Dank, the podcast. And on this episode, we're going to talk about the stories we tell ourselves and how we tell our stories and what that's about and why it's important and how to do it if you have trouble telling your story. Some people have trouble telling their story or other stories, telling stories, but it should be something that you can easily pick up because your story is totally unique, and that's what makes your story universal. Because what a lot of people don't realize is when they try to be ultra universal in their storytelling, it loses all of its life. And it's when you're more specific about, telling stories about specific things about yourself that only you know, that only you do, that you think no one would understand or anyone else does, that becomes universal because everyone on earth has that. They have a specific thing that they do alone in private that the world doesn't know about, that they think no one else does. That's the universality of it. So your story is like that. And everyone's story is like that because everyone is the universe aware of itself, just in different points, feeling separate from each other and forgetting about the unity, the oneness, what have you. And the reason we talk about storytelling as well is because it helps you get a job. So I'm going to talk about cover letter writing, resume writing, public speaking, giving a toast, how to do that, all kinds of alchemical ways to learn these skills, which are often required in today's world because, fortunately or not, you have to sell yourself sometimes. And selling yourself, the best way to do that is through story. Story is what connects people emotionally to things. And that's why advertisements don't make any sense. It's just about creating some sort of emotional connection. And because the ad can have nothing to do with the product and still advertise the product. And you'll associate that emotional connection with the product because of the ad, with a story that has nothing to do with the product. When it comes to cover letters, writing them, cover letters are probably some of the most boring pieces of writing that exist on earth, where you ask an employer, you tell the employer why you're qualified, why you deserve to be there. And they're not fun to read. I've read a lot of them. I've worked as a manager, read a lot of cover letters in there. Relatively boring documents. So instead of writing a boring thing like that, right? Whatever industry it is you're applying for, industry, whatever, right? Study the industry, study controversies in the industry, issues, recent events that happen in the industry. Just look it up, Google it, right? And then write about that in your cover letter. In your first paragraph, write about that thing, that issue, topic, controversy, recent event, and then your ideas and your opinions about that. And that's it. One paragraph. That's how you start the cover letter. And then second paragraph, you're qualified. I want to work here. I think we can do big things here. Something like that in the second paragraph. That's it. 2 paragraphs. Make it short and sweet and simple. And that first paragraph, because it's almost like an article, it's instantly more interesting than every other cover letter in that pile. Because you're just not just blabbing on about yourself and in a way that makes people kind of glaze out and tune out. And because you bring up a topic of interest, you seem kind of personable in the way you can relate topics to everyday things, how you're up to date. And it implies a lot of stuff, but it also just makes it an interesting cover letter. And you don't have to prove yourself that much to the cover letter. Cover letter is about piquing interest because they'll figure out who you are during the job interview. Right now, you want to create a little mystery, a little interest, but with the implication that you know far more than you're letting on. And that's what a cover letter like that can do. And then a resume, there are things written in resumes that you just don't need, like literally the words work history and the words education, address, telephone number, the labels of things you write into the resume, they should not exist. Keep your resume as simple and as minimalist as possible so that it looks like the menu of a fancy ass restaurant. Very little text, And when you do that, you imply to the reader that you think they're sophisticated and intelligent, and you don't need to add all these redundant words that they've seen a billion times. And they look at resumes with tons of text in them, but you want a lot of white space in your resume. Keep things very subtle, minimal, and the reader will think, oh, this person thinks I'm smart, and then they want to interview you because it's just gobbledygook, and write bullet points that make sense. Just 3 quick bullet points for each job. Don't go past 1 page. You just don't need to. No one cares. And if you think you have a bunch of extra relevant information, You can say, references upon request, whatever, which will pique their curiosity and make them want to talk to you. Less is more. Resumes and cover letters. Creating mystery, intrigue, interest, and assuming the reader is very smart. Makes you look like smart. And when you go to a job interview, remember, the main goal of a job interview is for the person to figure out if they can hang with you 40 hours a week for the next 3 years of their lives. That's actually what they want to know. Everything else is bullshit, I mean, it's important to some extent, but really that's what will, get you the job or not, is can you hang, So it's good to be relaxed, authentic, an authentic version of yourself. So they'll tell you, be yourself. But, if you really think about being yourself, it's thinking of a million things at once, always thinking about everything going wrong, being concerned, worried, overly concerned about it, feeling a little bit nervous and anxious about a new environment, high stakes. That's you. That's who you are as a person, right? So to be yourself doesn't really, I think there needs to be a little more nuance to that advice. And really what you want is the ability to play an authentic aspect of yourself. A version of yourself that is focused on one idea, explaining why you want to hang with them, right? At this job for what smart reasons. And you play that character. You play a person focused on that, because that's not a real human being. Real human beings aren't like that, really. It's a performance, but it can be a performance of your authentic self doing this. It's a version of you that's focused on selling yourself and why you want to hang with me, right? And you play that character. So you don't have to worry about being yourself and becoming too self-aware, because you're just going to play this character now that doesn't exist. It's part of you, but it's not who you are fully. That helps you get out of your own head, stay more relaxed. Second big tip when you're in a job interview is to try to visualize everything you're saying with your mind's eye very deeply. Visualize it in your mind's eye, and then you'll sort of move, you do this and that. Your eyes will go back and forth in the air, your head, your hands, and you end up becoming much more captivating. Everything you're saying is way more captivating. You just have a general charisma that starts to emerge because you're so focused in your reality sphere that people want to know what that's about, and they want to enter that reality sphere. Because if someone's just kissing up to the person and just trying to say everything they're supposed to say, you don't know what's going on. It doesn't give you any chance to kind of make any opinion at all. It's too bland. It's too universal. It makes it hard to connect with. You want to be specific. You want to be unique. That's your universality. So second part is visualize what you're saying. And then third thing, big piece of advice is, I would say, is inhale deeply as you're speaking. Inhale deeply at any moment you get a chance to, because when you inhale deeply during a job interview, you just let the words exhale for you. And as you keep inhaling deeply, you ensure that you don't have to catch up to your words and you're running out of air, which can happen when you have an adrenaline rush and you're doing public speaking or you're in an interview settings. But if you just pause at any second and inhale, no one notices it. It sounds like a measured pause, and it can add a musicality to the things you're saying. But you ensure that you're breathing deeply and your heart rate will start to slow down naturally. It's a physiological response of breathing deeply. It's a natural thing, and no one will notice. And it helps you continuously breathe when you do that, because thinking of the whole act of breathing, you forget to do that when you're having an adrenaline rush, when you're under a lot of high stakes. This happens in also fight sports. This is where this theory comes from. Because in fight sports, they tell you to exhale with every hit. Exhale, exhale, exhale. Because they learn that your lungs automatically inhale for you. Whereas in public speaking and interviewing, you're not fighting, but you're having a lot of adrenaline. So you do the opposite. You inhale only, focus only on inhaling. And you can be sure that your words will exhale for you. So you'll never stop breathing as long as you're inhaling, right? And you get used to this. Practice it and pause whenever. Learn how to make interesting pauses, and it will just make you more captivating, charismatic and focused and relaxed. So these are like major tips I give for people that are doing interviews, public speaking, and say you have to speak on behalf of somebody else, like at a wedding or God forbid, a funeral. You have to say a eulogy or something. An easy way to have a speech if you can't think of anything. If you can't think of anything that's original, it doesn't sound super cliche. You can do this. This is something that only probably you can do too. And it's pretty effective. Just try to think of a memory of being with this person you're speaking of, where you're quiet and you're sitting or something. You're relaxed with this person and it hits you as you look at them that you really know who they are in a new, deeper, more profound way, right? Think of that moment and then go backwards in time and think about all the silly story events that led to that moment, right? Because really the whole story is about that moment. So you tell this nonsense meandering story with random details about how you got there. It could be any story that led to that moment. The more mundane and banal and silly, the more powerful that last moment will be, right? Because you're not a born storyteller, but you can always tell a story naturalistically of an event that really happened. And you get to the point where you're silently looking at the person, you know them, and that's the end of the speech. And that's it. That's all you have to do. It works pretty well. Just think of a really good moment. That's all you have to do with that person where you feel like you know them and you connect to them, because it's all about connection, connecting, and feeling one with everything in the end. And coming back to that place. The place that, because we emerged from nothingness, we go back to nothingness. And then when we did emerge, our first points of consciousness were in a womb, and everything's connected, everything's perfect. So you feel connected and perfect with everything. Then you're separated, you feel separated, and you've been hunting for a way back to that feeling of connection. That's what love is. That's why you want love and stuff. And, sometimes I do notice that this sense of connection that people can imitate and create for the effect of like ingratiating themselves with people and maybe using them and getting away with things with them, So, I don't know. There was a situation at work where I work with this like kind of insecure guy who tries to like let us know how smart he is and thoughtful he is. So that's kind of the tell of how this person's insecure. And he was like making this mistake, right? And I saw him and he explained. I was like, okay, cool. So I was like going to explain how it's a mistake and how to fix it. And then he started doing it all over again, making the same mistake again to show me why he did the mistake. And I was like, no, it's okay. You don't have to do that. Then he got triggered because he thought I was cutting him off. But I was explaining like, no, I understood you the first time. I'm just explaining it. You don't have to show me all of this again, But he still got upset because then he was trying to lecture me about what it is to be thoughtful and a good listener and stuff like that. And I was like, man, listen, it's not an ego thing, because I knew he just is really insecure. Like, I don't even correct him anymore about anything if he's like super wrong, because he takes it really personally for some reason. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, then I realized like later, I was like telling him like, though, because we resolved it, right? But then I told him like, though, it's like the people that are good listeners, that are really polite and affable with you, those are the people that don't give a fuck about you a lot of times. And they're going to hurt you the most in life. You know that, right? And I saw it really hit him, right? Because I thought he would be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is like that. But instead, he was just more like shook, And I realized like, oh, too young. He doesn't know that yet. He doesn't realize that the world of niceties and politeness and stuff, pleasantries, is used to obfuscate a lot of corruption and horror and awfulness. Because even Donald Trump, they say when you meet him in real life, he's a great listener and he's very agreeable and affable and polite. He's very likable in person. That's how it happens when you meet him. That's why people get charmed by him. Even regardless of, if he can completely disagree with you, just lies through his teeth to tell you what you want to hear, and you enjoy it because he's really good at it. These people all over, they're everywhere. People like this, and they're manipulative, and that's how they get power, and that's how they do what they do. So, if you really think about it, there's this like cognitive dissonance that charismatic people are seen as better people, but they're not better people. They're just charismatic. There's no correlation between being a good person and a charismatic person. They could be a good person, but they could also totally not be a good person. Charisma has nothing to do with whether, you're morally a good person. Because it's not exactly, I don't know. So be careful. If you're younger, you might not realize this yet, because I find sometimes younger people are a little shallow and believe in like pretty is good, ugly is bad, things like that. Like shallow cultural biases that they're not fully self-aware of yet, that they were shaped and grown and told by the world, and they realize as they get older it was bullshit. But I always forget at what age people realize this kind of stuff. And the only reason I know this is because I have been deeply heartbroken and fooled by tons of extremely charismatic people that really liked me, but then I realized like they were too selfish and cruel to others, not even to me, but to others. And it's like not a good person to be with, because I suppose I'm charismatic too, but maybe like an actual, I don't know, there's like darker ones and lighter ones, let's say. I like to think of myself as a shadow person anyway, but it's good to be careful. It happens because you want to be liked, and people know how to make you feel connected. Those are those people, and that's something you yearn for and crave. But you yearn for it and crave it less when you realize there is no separation. It's an illusion, and that you can feel connected to everything all the time, at will, anytime you want. That's the real truth of it. And anyone trying to tell you otherwise is lying or trying to sell you something. And if you have to worship anything at all, I've said this many times, worship your own highest self, because that is something that's within you, can't be taken from you. You cannot feel in total opposition to it because it's inside of you. You're not always there, but it's there at a moment's notice if you want it, and you know what it is. You can't lie to yourself about it. And if everything is God, the whole universe and everything, then your highest self is just an aspect of the one. So that's a good thing, because when you worship things outside of yourself, you can feel less than the thing, separated from the thing, or needing the thing. But when it's your highest self, you don't need it, it's there. You're just not there all the time. It's a lot more chill, a lot less high stakes, and creates a lot less codependency issues that often happen with gurus and spiritual teachers and as coaches and shit that have hierarchy and act like they're the ones with the answers. Because I have a lot of answers, but a lot of my answers are derived from sitting counsel with all these other individuals and coming up with solutions to problems I never heard before that I don't actually have. But by listening to all these problems in other people's lives and breaking the problem down into elements and reweaving a story that changes the entire outcome of the story, I've learned so much. And that is what I'm teaching, stuff that's from the collective, created by a collective of people, that should be shared back with the collective in a free flow, free exchange, no hierarchy. Because there's people doing better than you and worse than you, and you can always be helped by someone and help somebody else. And it's better to think of us all as guardians on a chain instead of the one, the holy of holies. Besides, the holiest woman I ever met was like this 60-year-old Japanese lady who was married, and she was just like a proud housewife and mother to a non-binary child and a entrepreneurial white dude. And she just read and loved, and she had these visions when she was young, like when she was 18 or 20 something. And she was very like depressed and didn't want to go on anymore. But then she had these series of 2 dreams that showed her the meaning of life and everything. And she read text in the dreams. And there was this pink color of love and a book of life and stuff. And it was like happening to her. And she completely wanted to live all like hardcore after that. But she was totally satisfied being a loving mother. And that was the most classical prophet person I ever met, who had a very like prophetic dream that taught her enlightenment. And part of being truly enlightened is not needing to necessarily be powerful and famous. So you got to realize your powerful and famous gurus, they have to want fame too, They can't they want it to some extent, and that's why they might not be as pure as you would think. So this lady, though, she just wants to be a mother. That's it. And she's totally content. And she was like a Buddha to me. Whether she's a bodhisattva or not is up to her. I don't know. But I am a bodhisattva. I have to try to spread the teachings and try to do it simply and easily for as many people as I can, because I'm told I have a way of doing that. I have a way of distilling information so it's a little more digestible. So as you tell your story, I've worked on TED Talks, and a lot of times in subjects, like I did 2 TED Talks. I worked on 2 TED Talks. One was for a spiritual leader. The other was for a marine biologist AI, software engineer, programmer, right? Subjects are as wide as you could ever think. And yet I was able to help both of these people equally, because my job was really to distill their story and figure it out. Sometimes there's too much information in your mind, and it can be difficult to distill it in a way that's communicable. So I help them find that aha moment, that connection to everyone, but that specific thing in their own life experience that everyone can relate to, even though it's in a totally different world. Problems they discover and solving them with some simple idea scaled up in an extraordinary outside the box manner. And then how they want to serve and how it should more than anything inspire other people. Because you don't want to necessarily sell something. You want an idea worth spreading, right? That's the idea. So I'm able to do that, and anyone can do this. Just find those moments in life where you feel something deep, a mix of emotions you can't tell, like love and hate at the same time, anxiety and relaxation at the same time. These weird moments where it's kind of inexplicable, and then deconstruct that moment and try to explain what made that moment that moment. Because usually what you need is the end of the story, and that's connection. Whatever it is that you lead to is about connection in the end. That's what gives it a feeling that's bigger than you, that feeling of connectedness in spite of the separation that we feel. And that's what storytelling is about. Like if you journal regularly, it's really great. That stuff is great for historians in the future, because it is a better sign of authentic lived human reality than pop culture and all that other stuff is usually journal entries, because they're so unique sometimes, especially when there's no audience for them. And they're about the most mundane and banal things, which you need all of that to create the richness of life, not just the hyper-real, exciting stuff, which is what usually you see in TV and film, a highly saturated, hyper-real reality. And that's the thing about fiction. That's why when I watch TV and film projects, I can predict 90% of their endings, within 30 minutes, because it's not how reality is. Reality doesn't work that way, But stories do. Stories have a certain artifice and timeline and structure to them for you to be engaged as fast as possible. But real life doesn't do that. It's a little more difficult. So find those moments that are inexplicable in your life. Write about them if you can. Journal about it. And that's going to be the best thing for historians in the future. How people time travel to this time. Because we're being inundated with AI content and people making a bunch of slop. Not a lot of great media, not a lot of voices. I feel there's so many voices that are unheard of from. And journaling just helps you add on to the voice, create like a body of life in words. I don't know. There should be like a journaling database for people to get a snapshot of what New York is like. Maybe get like digital journal entries from several people at points of the city and have them journal electronically every day, like a group of the people, right? And then you could just hit the date and read all the entries and get a picture of what the city was like that day through the voices of like 20 New Yorkers or something like that. That would be great. I think that would be a really, really fascinating way to capture life, lived life in the past. Because but of course, media companies aren't interested in that necessarily because it's not monetizable. Not really. But it'd be a fun research project or an experiment. It's like an experiment I conceived of some time ago called like the Book of Polytheism. And the premise of this is that there is no such thing as monotheism. Monotheism was a paradigm that existed for over 2,000 years after the Judeo-Christian religions kind of took over the world. But before that, it was always polytheism all the time. People believed in many gods and there was no issue about it. And today, people barely worship, the Judeo-Christian gods, not really. And most people, they worship celebrities and ideas and icons and corporations. That stuff is worshipped way more than any gods. And in a sense, they are gods. They're new gods. And everyone's a polytheist. People, if you believe in astrology and you believe in Christianity, they're not supposed to be compatible. But you do it, right? If you believe in human design and you're Christian, that's not supposed to work, but it happens, right? If you're a Taoist and, all over the people are believing in different religious systems of magic and stuff, you're a polytheist. That's not supposed to work if there's only one God. That's just, we've been trapped in this paradigm of thinking in a monotheistic manner where there's only one truth, instead of all things could be true in different valences. A little more nuanced, and harder to grapple with. But guess what? We're like postmodern. So sorry about that. But now what was I talking about? So this digital book project, the Book of Polytheism. The idea is that I would write my own book. Everyone writes a book in this digital book project. So the first book is like Book of Dank, hashtag deconstructionist Buddhist, right? And then in the book that I write with my hashtag, right? I write the story of what I believe in and why I believe in what I believe in. It can be even atheism. It could be Zeus. It could be Wolverine. It could be LeBron James. It doesn't matter. You just write the story of why you believe in whatever you believe in, up to the point where you read a book from the Book of Polytheism. And all you have to do to add a book to this digital book project is read a book. You have to read a book and then add your book to it on a chain. And there'll be branches of this book growing online, and it will branch out like a tree, and you'll witness it branching out digitally as people keep adding books. Book of Rob, hashtag atheism. Book of Sally, hashtag Wicca. All kinds of books. There'll be like LGBT branch, QAnon branch, all kinds of branches, right? It doesn't matter. It's going to be sort of open source. That's the idea. And you create almost like a digital Akashic record of the beliefs and systems of countless people on earth, and how they all branch out into one tree, because we're all one. All these different messages are part of the one message. There's a thing similar about all the prophets that Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, bunch of people, this person goes out into the desert or the woods for 30 to 50 days. They barely eat, meditating all day, praying all day. And their body at some point thinks you're dying. And then that endogenous DMT release occurs in your brain because you think you're dying. And you get swept up with this embodied feeling that everything is one and we're all love. And that's what it's all about. It's such a powerful experience that is recreatable in the human brain that everyone goes through eventually, even when they die or before that. But it's a phenomenon that anyone can experience. Is that just some people, they got it, and then they came back and they were able to cleverly communicate the messages and then create a movement behind it. But as soon as that prophet dies, there's a power vacuum and everything gets corrupted and violence, man, But it's the same story. But it's a story that is, we're all gonna experience. It's not separate from you. It is you. You are the guru. Any realization you have to have has to happen inside your mind. Even if somebody like cues you into some truth, you have to realize it in your head for it to click. It doesn't matter if other people knew it, There'll always be someone that knows something you don't know. Often a fool. I learn from fools every day. That's how I've, gotten to where I am at, in a good place. All right, we're going to head into our meditation. Guided meditation for this episode. The guided meditation will be about reweaving your story. The idea is that there is an infinite multiverse. There's other versions of you. There's countless worlds where you don't exist because you're not supposed to be here. And in this meditation, we will be reweaving the threads of the past and the future to tap into a timeline we want to be in. Just branch it out to make it work, make it happen now. That's what we're going to do. And when we do this reweaving, there's going to be a motion of making a knot with your hands. 2 pieces of string and making a knot, okay? That's going to be one of the motions. We're going to collect Tonglen energy, one hand up like this, one hand down like this. And as we do the breath work, we're going to collect this energy. Then we're going to lift it up and reweave the timelines, okay? Knot. That's what's going to happen. And we're going to enter timelines that we want to be in, perhaps, but better off timelines that you need to be in, which you might not know what that means, right? That's part of it. Because often the timeline you want is bullshit. Like, unless you're wise as hell, likely the timeline you want is a little bullshit that you're not really comprehending right now. So it's better to ask for the timeline you need, which should be almost beyond your imagination. It's more fun that way. And it keeps the mystery alive. All right. sit comfortably, have a hand up like this, one hand down like this, like a funnel. As you pull this energy together, close your eyes with the back straight and just breathe in and out through the nose. Naturally, at your own pace. In and out through the nose. Now, as you keep breathing, realize now that with every in-breath, you take in all the horror and suffering of the world. And every out-breath, you exhale that all is love or love is all. So with the in-breath, you take in the anxieties, frustrations of the world, and you exhale patience and resilience. In and out. In with darkness, out with light. In with pain, out with love. And let your hands and body move however you want. While you are doing this, just feel the energy coursing through you as you breathe in the horror and suffering of the world, and you exhale that all is love. The mantra that all is love or love is all. Take in pain, the worries. Exhale, love is all. Just keep breathing in and out as you pull this Tonglen energy of unification around you, as you pull this energy and feel it through your body. Let your body move at will as you feel this energy. To inhale the horror and exhale love. In, out. In, out with love. Now, in the next in-breath, we're going to lift this energy up from the floor and knot it around and reweave this timeline. Okay, ready? We're going to inhale and exhale as you knot. You finish this knot as you reweave timelines, past and future. Inhale, pick up this energy again. Exhale as you retie the threads of this reality. Inhale, knot and tighten as you reweave the timelines. Now back to the breath, in and out. In with darkness and suffering, out with love. In with anxieties, out with relaxation. In with the darkness, out with love. In, out. In, out. Now with the next in-breath, we're going to lift this energy and reweave the timelines again. And exhale as you tighten the knot, the strands of this reality. Inhale, lift this energy, reweaving the timelines. Exhale as you tighten the new knots. Inhale as you lift the energy of the different worlds, the many worlds. You tie them together into this timeline. In and out. In and out. Out with love. In suffering. Out with light. Now we'll do 3 final breaths. Close. In with the darkness. Out with all is love. In with the pain. Love is all. In with the suffering. All is love. All right. Thank you. Hope that meditation works for you. Think about it. There's a lot of ways to think about it, a lot of ways to do it. So, thanks for coming back. Subscribe and like if you like this podcast, to all your podcasting platforms and YouTube and stuff like that. This was Dharma Dank, Stories We Tell. Signing off. All is love. Love is all. Take care, folks.